in July, which was 5 days, and we have the assumption that you have knowledge of Voyant. And if you don't, you can always we send a link so that you'll be able to catch up. So now we have Professor Geoffrey Rockwell here with us today, and he's a co-developer of Voyant and Spyral too, and as a professor of philosophy and digital-humanities at the University of Alberta. And this tool has been existing for more than 20 years with continuous development and being used all across the world. And today we're privileged to have him with us. And we're happy that you join us from all parts of the world for this event. So this kickstarts the hackathon for that will end on Friday. So thanks to everyone and welcome Professor Geoffrey Rockwell.
Thank you. Um, so I should be sharing my screen now. You should be able to see my first slide. Is everything good? Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Someone, Augustine, someone, make noise when things don't show up properly. Okay, so this is the first of 2 days that I'm going to present, and then Augustine is going to present the more sophisticated content. I'm going to sort of introduce you to Voyant and JavaScript, and then you'll be going deeper in. Just to give a sense of what we're going to do today, I'm going to introduce you to notebooks in general. Then I'm going to show you how to create a Spyral notebook. We're going to see how to create it from Voyant, how to, in effect, launch it from Voyant. And then we're going to talk about how to manage and edit Spyral notebooks, the metadata, the text and the code cells. We're going to look at how you can copy code. And then we're going to end by, I'm going to end by showing you one way by which you can save your Spyral notebooks and keep them. And then tomorrow I'll be showing you a second way. So, but my objectives for today is to get you to the point where you can create, save, open notebooks and export a Voyant panel and get the code so you can use it in Spyral and be able to edit the text and the code cells. So that's my outline for today. I want to start by saying a few words about the notebook programming paradigm itself. This goes back to a paper by Donald Knuth in 1984, which the title of the paper was Literate Programming, in which he argued that we should reverse our ideas about how you go about programming a project. Back when I was in high school and college and learning how to program, you would go straight into the code editor, you would write your code, and then your professor would tell you that you really had to go in and write some comments so that you would be able to understand the code later on and something like that. But none of us did it. We were all super lazy. We would just try to run the code, get it to work, and then that was good enough. And what Knuth argued was that we should actually we should invert this paradigm. And instead of starting with programming and then adding documentation and code after the fact, we should start by writing and describing what it is we're trying to do and then filling the code in once we have thought through and described what it is we want to do. And that's why he called it literate program, that you're in some sense you're telling a story first, and then you're getting the code that you need for that story to actually be able to run on the computer. And that has led to a different programming paradigm that which we call notebook programming. There are a number of different notebook programming environments. One of the ones that I actually like the most is Mathematica, Wolfram's Mathematica. And that was developed in 1988, has been around. The downside of Wolfram's Mathematica is it costs a lot of money. I think in Canada at least, the annual license for, one copy is like $200. Some universities can afford to get everybody a license, but most of us are having to buy it. But having said that, Wolfram Mathematica is a beautiful environment. He's got his own programming language. He just keeps on adding things to it and so on like that. and it is a very mature notebook programming environment. More popular, more recently, has been Jupyter notebooks. So uh, people have been, Jupyter is a sort of open project that produces a notebook programming environment in the browser. And most people use it to program Python. You can, I think, use Jupyter for other programming languages, but it's used mostly for Python. And a whole community, data science community, has sort of grown around Jupyter notebooks. You now get Jupyter servers, so certain universities will actually run Jupyter servers. You don't have to run it on your own machine. Here in Canada, the Compute Canada, our national advanced computing platform, they run Jupyter servers, and there's all sorts of libraries for doing data science in Python. So it's a very rich community for this sort of data science notebook style programming, and you're gonna get a sense of how notebook programming works as this workshop goes along. I'll also mention that Colab is another Python notebook programming environment that is offered by Google. And it has built into it all sorts of support from Google. So if you're at a university which is a Google shop, and for example, I am at such a university, University of Alberta has done a deal with Google, so all of our email is Google. We all have Google Drive, Google Calendar, so on, so on, and so on, and we have access to Colab. And Colab is a particularly nice in-browser run Python programming environment. You can actually now call up an AI like Gemini and ask it to help you, write code and so on like that. So these are all different examples of notebook programming. So now I'm going to change. I'm going to change hats. That's my little background on this style of programming. I'm now going to actually introduce you to doing notebook programming in Voyant. And what I'm going to start with is I'm going to show you how you can bridge from Voyant to Spyral. And I should say that Spyral is actually part of Voyant. It's not a separate environment. It is really a different interface, a notebook interface to the same underlying functionality. And the word Spyral comes from spiral, as in spiral notebook. But we were also playing with the idea of spying, that, what we're doing here in text analysis and visualization is spying on the text in different ways. Anyway, what I'm going to show you how to do is I'm going to show you how you can, from within Voyant, when you see a result that you like, you can export a Spyral notebook, and we generate the Spyral notebook from that result that you see. And I'm going to walk you through that sort of process, so you can see whatever it is that you see and you like in Voyant, you can export it, and then you can document it and stuff like that. And what you will get when you export is you'll get a simple notebook with 2 lines, 2 code cells, just enough to load the particular corpus that you were looking at, and to then load whatever panel it was that you thought you liked. And what I'm going to do when we export to this first notebook, um, I'm going to show you the different parts of the notebook so you have an idea of the sort of high level view of what the different parts are. And of course, we'll be going further in and looking at the different text cells and code cells, and we'll be playing with these and the different tools up in the top. And then finally, we'll actually run the code that was generated from Voyant, and we'll run it and we'll get the same panel of results that we're looking at. So I'm going to switch now to my browser and I'm going to run through this process, but you have it in the slides. If you get lost, you can go back. I've tried to create slides which are that document this process here. So I'm going back to here we are in Voyant. So here I am. I've loaded the Austin corpus. You can load your own corpus. And let's say, for example, I wanted to export to Spyral the word cloud. And and one way of thinking of Spyral, when you're working in Voyant, you're exploring. When you work in Spyral, you're telling a story because what Spyral is going to allow you to do is to create a chain, a narrative of text and code cells and results. So you can tell a story about your analysis of the text, something which you can't really record when you're in Voyant. You're popping back and forth and something like that. So I want to tell a story about Austen's novels. You'll remember if you're in Voyant and you want to export, you go up to the upper right-hand corner. The export button is that square with a little arrow pointing out. I click on that, and it gives me two choices, export view and export visualization. I actually want export view. And down here, there's a choice to export a new Spyral notebook from this tool and data. So that's what I click. It gives me this Spyral notebook, and you'll see that this notebook has the various components I was talking about. Up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a series of controls. Then we have the title. This is what I call the metadata. I'll be showing you later on how you can edit this metadata. We then have a text cell here. I'll be showing you how you can do stuff in the text cell. We have a first code cell, and this code cell loads the corpus that I was looking at, the Austen corpus, and assigns it to a name, my corpus. So we have an object called my corpus, and when that particular cell is run, and I can click this button up here to run all the code blocks. And you now see that the code is running. When the first code block is run, it tells me that it's got this one object, and it's called that the corpus ID is Austen. In your cases, it'll be a long ID number with letters and numbers and stuff like that. But in this case, we've got a named one. And then we have one line that takes the my corpus. So we loaded this corpus, we called it my corpus, and then calls a tool called Cyrus. And there we are. We now have the same word cloud that we saw in Voyant. We now have in this story that we're going to build up and start telling. And this panel is interactive. I can change the number of terms. It's interactive just as it was in Voyant. It's not a static image. I can change the scale so that I can, if I want to, I can just look at the words for a particular text. And I can do all the things that I could do in Voyant, but I have this one particular panel here. So to resume, to just refresh you, I went into Voyant. I found the Cyrus display. I exported it to a new Spyral notebook. That Spyral notebook gave me, yes. Is there someone who wanted to say something? Um, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to
That was a
stop.
mistake. So please
Oh,
mute yourself so that you won't make such mistake. Thank you.
that's okay. We all make mistakes. Anyway, now what I'd like you to do is to follow that same process. Go into Voyant if you have your own corpus, and I'd like you to export the word cloud to a notebook, and then I'd like you just to explore it. Try clicking on things. You can't break anything. If the notebook breaks, we can always generate it again and play around with it and try running it. So I'm going to stop here, stop for a moment, and just wait until everybody's had a chance to do that. And you can ask questions too. This is how I'm going to run this workshop, by the way. I'm going to show something in PowerPoint, then I'm going to show how it works, then I'm going to turn it over to you, and you all get a hands-on. We're a nice small group, There's time for everyone to do it hands-on and to stop and ask me questions.
So what Prof is saying, the link that I sent to the chat now, if you click on it, if it's open on your system, um, you can can practice on your side. But if you are practicing, you want to show us something, you're free to share your screen, or if you have difficulties with some of it, so that we'll be able to see that you are doing it on your side. Is it okay, Prof, if anyone just share screen if they want to show that they are doing it or something like that?
Absolutely, yeah. They can share or just I'll give everybody a little bit of time and then they can put their hands up. We can also um, they can just sort of send one put a sort of thumbs up when they're finished.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'm going to share again.
Okay. I think Abel, you shared a slide. You want to show us something, or you want to ask question, or what did you can see in the
No,
group?
as a matter of fact, I just tried it out following the steps that Prof showed now with my corpus, and this is what I got. So
Okay.
just so that
Oh, okay.
I can actually share my screen if you don't
Yeah,
mind, just so that
you
you
can,
see.
so that others can see. And if anybody
Yeah.
has difficulties, please take note before the prof moves on.
So this is my spiral. Um, can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, excellent.
Uh,
This is
yeah.
perfect. Well,
Yeah.
you've got your first Spyral notebook.
Thank you.
And everything else is downhill from here. You just got to learn how to create other text cells and other code cells.
Yeah,
You can now tell stories and document what
that's
you're
right.
doing, your research. Oh,
Yeah.
and you have to learn how to save this and to be able to open it up again.
Yeah.
If you scroll up, you'll notice in my example, I have a named corpus, Austin. But
Yeah.
you have a corpus with an ID, which is a long series of letters and numbers. And that's what you're normally going to see when you're doing this sort of thing.
Hmm.
And that corpus ID, by the way, is the same corpus idea when you're in Voyant, that's what you'll see at the top. If you click on Voyant, if you look at the top in the URL
Yeah.
bar, you'll see that you've got corpus equals. That's the
Yeah.
same
Code.
ID number.
Yeah. I've seen it.
And in fact, you can, without even having to launch a Spyral notebook from your Voyant, if you have that ID number, you can just write the code yourself. Load corpus, open parentheses, and so on, so on, so on.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. So can I stop sharing my screen to give opportunity to another person?
Yeah, good
All
job.
right. Thank you.
Thanks.
I, I think now I'm going to go on to the next phase to give you a little bit more to play with. And so what I'm going to do now, let me just clean up my screen a bit here because so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through the different ways that you can edit some of the metadata and text cells. So for example, by double clicking on the title, we get a metadata panel which we can edit. And then by clicking on the text cell, we can also we get a little text editing panel, and we can begin to edit that particular text cell. And I'll show you some other features of that. And then what I'm going to show you how to do is I'm going to show you how to add a new text cell. So we're trying to build this story about Austin's novels or about your own data set. So I'm going to show you how you can add your own text cell, and that will produce a new cell that you can edit in and type the things that you're thinking of doing. Going back to this idea of literate programming, the idea is to write your ideas out first, what it is that you're looking for, what you're trying to analyze, and then write the code. So that's sort of what we're gonna do the way we're gonna do it. So I'm switching now to my browser. Here's the notebook that I created. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm clicking on the where it says Spyral Notebook on the title bar, and I can now change this. So I'm going to call it something like My Story About Austin. I'm going to type in my name. This is by Jeffrey Rockwell. I can put some keywords. I can say that this is about text analysis and Austin. Um, this little checkbox here, if I click that, other people will be able to see and find my notebook in the public catalog field, which I'll show you later on. For the moment, I just want to keep this for myself. I can write a short description. We've got a number of licenses if you want to sort of be clear about what license, how you're licensing your materials. And sorry, I just hit cancel by mistake. Jeffrey Rockwell. Uh, my Austin notebook. Under language, we have some different languages. We may not have all the languages that these are the languages that are sort of built into Voyant, so we may not have your language. I'm going to stick to English, and then I'm going to save the metadata. And now you see it says My Austin Notebook, and it's got my name there at the top. And actually, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that it says copyright Jeffrey Rockwell. And so it's also saving my name there under the copyright. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you, which is how to edit the metadata. And you should all feel free to start playing around as I go through this. The second thing is I want to show you how you can edit a text cell. So here's a text cell. When I click in it, you'll notice I clicked outside. When I click in it, I now get a toolbar, and you should recognize this. This is a pretty standard looking toolbar that allows me to edit text. And I can delete the text which is there, and I can write this is my story of Austin. I've got all the various things that I might want to do. If I want to do a heading, I can say the beginning. I can select that text, go down here, heading number 1. So it's very similar to editing an HTML page. I can create a link using this. I can delete links. For those of you who know HTML, I can create anchors. So I can create a table of contents in my notebook, and the links will actually go to other portions of the notebook. I can drop an image, I can drop a table, I can even edit the raw HTML. There you see, and if I edit it here, it'll show up there. I've got the usual bold italics, underscore, numbered, bulleted points. I can indent and outdent paragraphs, quotation, block quotes, so on, so on, so on. And then I have some styles here, which can be useful. For example, if you want to talk about computer code, you can sort of pick a computer code style. So I got all the various tools that we need to edit this text and, in effect, write a paper or write a story in this case. Now, I want to point out a couple of other things that are important. Over on the right, we have this number. This sort of disappears when your pointer is not over the text, but over the block, the cell. But when you go over the cell, you'll see that number appears, and that's going to tell you the number of the cell. And so we have these cells are in a certain order. On the other side, we have 3 controls that allow us to control this particular cell. We've got a plus, which allows us to add a new cell. We've got a trash can that allows us to delete this particular cell. And then we have a sort of configuration. In this case, it allows us to move the cell up or down. So you can reorder your cells. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a new text cell at the bottom describing what I think I want to do next in the telling of this story. So I'm going to go to the cell right before the bottom. So this is this cell right here. This is the last cell in the notebook. I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to say Add Text. And it now adds here. You see it says click here to edit. So we now have a text cell. And here in this text cell, I can now type something. And what I'm interested in, when I look at this word cloud, I notice that we have a number of sort of titles: Mr., Mrs., Miss. You could think of maybe mother as a title, dear. So I'm going to now start studying these titles. So I'm going to write myself a little note. Now I'm going to study the titles in Austin. And so I've got my little text note here. And the next thing I'm going to have to do is to figure out how to get some code which will allow me to actually follow those titles across the different novels. But before I do that, I want to turn it over to you and give you a chance to play with text cells. So go in. I'd like you to edit your metadata. I'd like you to try editing the cell at the beginning, and then I'd like you to add a new cell and type in some thoughts about what you're going to do next. And if if you find that you finish early, you can try creating a link in the text cell to uh, to the Voyant corpus that you're working with. So I'm going to pass it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing and pass it over to you all. So start playing, and I'm right here. If you have questions, you can put them. You can put your questions in the chat, or you can just turn on your audio. We're a small enough group. You can turn on your audio and go from there.
Thank you. Someone has a question. Abraham, do you want to ask it now? That's a good time to ask the question or show whatever problem you are facing. Abraham Anefu, go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, Prof. Thank you for the explanation. I'm trying to export from Voyant to Spyral
Yeah.
on my system, but it's not showing the picture from Voyant, the Cyrus view
Can you
that
share?
I tried to export.
Can you share your screen, please?
So my guess is that what you have to do is you have to run the cells. So sometimes when you export, it generates the code, but it doesn't actually run the code that generates the cells. And maybe what I'll do is I'll share again and I'll just show you how that might look. Um, so right here, um, let me see how I can. So you might be getting something like this. So what you have is you have these two lines of, I'm going to delete the results. So what you get is you have some text, and then you have two lines of code. And if the code isn't run, you're not going to see any results. So when we start looking at code cells, the code cells, in some sense, always have two parts. There's the code itself, and then there's what you get when you run it. And there's two ways of running it. You can, up here in the upper right, there's run all the code blocks in this notebook. And that will just start at the top and run these code blocks one after another. Or you can run them individually using this little arrow button that pops up when you mouse over a code block. So if I click this, it runs it, and then I know that it ran properly when it gives me this result saying, yes, I've loaded the corpus and it's now available to you. My corpus is an object which has the Austin corpus. And then the next code block, when I hit run, it will generate the Cyrus word cloud. And I should note that there's also, I'm jumping ahead here, but you can expand and contract the results area. So I've expanded it so that now you see the full word cloud. A word of warning, if I'm going to delete the results here for both of these. If I run the second code cell without running the first one, it's going to give me an error. Well, no, it didn't. There you go. Well, in certain situations, if you haven't loaded your corpus, because I've already loaded it, it's already there. But there are situations where if you come to a notebook that you haven't used for a while, you need to go back through and run all the cells one after another, or the later cells will not properly they depend on something that happened before. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes, Prof. Thank you. I've gotten it.
Excellent. And we'll be in just a moment, we'll be going over the code cells and talking about them and playing with them. But in the meantime, I'm hoping everybody is adding a text cell and typing some text in it. Great. Oh, I like patience loaded a screen so we can see it. So does anyone need any more time, or can I go on? Should I go on to the next?
Oh, beautiful.
What do you say, Augustine? Shall I move on, or shall I wait a little bit longer?
I think we can move on. I think Patience has shared. She has done that. I think any other person can share, but if you have a problem, you can notify us now on what, okay, Joseph too has So few people are dropping in the chat what they have done. So yeah, this is good testimony. We can move on. It's like a lot of people are making progress.
Okay, and okay, I'm going to share. Switching back to my slides. And now we're going to look at the code cells. And just to sort of review what you saw before, the code cells, similar to the text cells, will have a set of controls on the left, though they have one control that the text cells do not have, which is that run button, because you can't really run a text cell. And similar to the text cell on the right, they will have a cell number. And then something that is new is this whole sort of results area. And when we exported our notebook from Voyant, it produced two code cells. And just to sort of go over what's happening with those two code cells, the first one is loading the corpus. So it's telling Voyant this is the corpus that we're going to work with, and it assigns it a name. My corpus. You can type in whatever name you want. It could be my Austin corpus. I tend to use this sort of camel casing when I write names that have more than one word. I capitalize the first letter of each of the second and subsequent words. So that's why my corpus has this capital C. And then we can use that assigned name, that object, my corpus, and we can use that and we can begin to call methods. And we call the most important method, which is the tool method. And then in the sort of in the list of parameters for the tool method, we name the particular tool we want, Cyrus. And as you can imagine, later on, we're going to see how we can basically write code that would load any tool we want. In fact, tomorrow I'll be showing you how you can call up the help. You can see exactly the code you need to be able to load any one of the tools and to be able to control their parameters and stuff like that, which gives you an immense amount of power. So that's the sort of the bit of JavaScript that we have there. Now, what I'm going to show you now is rather than writing the code from scratch, if we stay with this idea about we're telling a story, we're interested in the courtesy titles that Austin uses. So what I'm going to do is rather than writing the code from scratch, I'm just going to go back to Voyant and I'm going to play with the trends tool and export the trends tool to Spyral, and then I'm going to copy that code and paste it into the notebook that I'm actually maintaining. And then I'm just going to discard that new notebook that I generated. I'm just treating it as a sort of one-off, and I'm going to let it go. And so what I'm trying to show you is that without having to write any code, you can just sort of generate the displays that you want from Voyant. You can copy the code, paste them in, run them, add text blocks, and you can begin to build that narrative without having to write any code from scratch. Now, in the rest of the week, we'll be showing you how you can write code from scratch. But if you're not into the programming, if you find it annoying or it doesn't work, you can always go back to Voyant and generate it. So that's what I'm going to be doing in a second is getting some code pasting in some code, and then I'm going to show you a little bit of how you can edit the code, in particular, how we can edit the code so that we get the courtesy titles that we didn't have before. Now, where am I to? Yep. And this is showing how we're going to add a code cell. We're going to paste that code in that we got from the other notebook. We're going to run it, and then we're going to change it so that it has the particular words that we're interested in. And, and then we will delete the notebook that we generated just on the fly. Okay, so now I'm going to do this. You can follow me live or not. So down here at the bottom, I'm now going to study I'm just going to add the word courtesy. Titles in Austin. So I'm going to switch back to Voyant. Here's my trends tool. It's got a couple of courtesy titles, but it also has other words. I'm going to export it. So I'm clicking on the export button, exporting the view. I'm exporting to a Spyral notebook. So here's my Spyral notebook. It has the two code cells, the one that creates the corpus, and then the one that is here. I'm going to select that line of code, copy it, and I'm going back to my Austin notebook. So here we are in my Austin notebook. I'm going to hit the plus sign, and I'm now going to add a code cell. And you can always tell the code cells because they actually have the little gray box on the left that tells you what number it numbers the lines. I can now paste this back in. If I want, I can run this, and it generates the trend graph. One of the things that I need to always check, of course, is that if I have chosen to name my corpus something other than my corpus, I need to make sure that I have that name synchronized, so it's the same name. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to edit this a little bit. I'm going to get rid of, I just want the courtesy titles. So I just want Mr. I just want, oop, Mr., Mrs., and Miss. I don't want said and think. So I just have these three words. I run the code again, and I see absolutely nothing, which, let's give this, oh, there it goes. I think with everybody hitting the server at the same time, we're slowing down the server. So here we are. We have added a code cell. We've copied and pasted code that we exported from Voyant. So we've copied and pasted this code, and then we've actually edited the code a little bit, and we've now got a display with the courtesy titles that we want. And later on, we could actually add some courtesy titles. If you look more closely, you find that there are other courtesy titles. For example, Sir. I could decide I want to add Sir. So I'm going to add a comma, quotation marks, Sir. Hit run again. It takes its time, and now we've got these courtesy titles, and we can see which ones. So, for example, Pride and Prejudice and Emma seem to use Mr. a lot. Sir seems to be used less, but it shows up in Mansfield Park. Mrs. seems to be in Sense and Sensibility is important, and in Emma also. Yeah, so you can sort of see how these courtesy titles show up in different Austen novels. The last thing I'm going to do to clean up is I'm going to go back to that Spyral notebook. This is the one that we generated just to copy the code. We don't need to keep this notebook. I'm going to close it just the way you would normally close any tab. I click the close button. It asks me, it double checks, am I sure? Because I have not saved anything. I'm going to say yes, fine, leave. We don't need it. And here we are back where we were. We have now added a code cell, generated a new notebook to copy the code, pasted it into our code cell, edited it, and we now have our notebook has now 3 code cells in total. So I'm going to stop there and let you guys play away.
Thank you. Joseph, you have a question in the chat, or you're playing with what has just been thought with regards to changing the parameters? You said, can you comment code in Spyral? That's Joseph's question.
Yes, you can. Just give me a moment here. Let me share. So in JavaScript in general and in Spyral, you comment code by putting 2 forward slashes. You can do that either inline or on its own line. So right here, for example, I'm gonna put so 2 forward slashes, and you'll notice how it colorizes it red. Now we are going to get a trends panel. I can also leave comments after a line. So this is the code that works. So there you are. You've got commenting. You can see how to do the commenting, and that doesn't affect how it runs. I'm going to stop sharing again. Good question.
Thank you. Has anyone practiced the parameter changing for the corpus, like using the trying tools, like or you want to show us if you're having problem, or you screenshot and share?
Yeah, I'm actually working on it now, and it's fantastic. Maybe I should just share my screen doing it while you just sit and watch and correct me if I'm going the wrong direction. Okay. So I just used the trends tool to generate this.
Okay, this is your
So
corpus.
yeah, this is my corpus.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was actually following Prof when he did this. So
Yeah,
so
you
I'm
can send
doing
your
mine
corpus.
now.
Let's see your
Yeah,
corpus.
this is Prof's Austin, but I also created mine too using
Your copy.
his yeah. Then so this is mine. So I'm copying this now. Um, and then I'm pasting it here in here, add code, and voila.
Well, which corpus are you querying now?
It's my own.
Oh, but you know that my corpus in this particular page might be
Yeah,
referring to or Prof.
No, I think my corpus should work because I think he loaded. If you go up to the top,
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
so you loaded.
This is
Yeah,
my
so you
corpus. Yeah,
loaded
Oh,
your.
yes. Okay, yes, loaded it here.
uh, yeah. This is my
You
own
do have
corpus.
to. Augustine is right. You have to keep track of.
Yeah,
To keep track because you can, when you're doing certain projects, you can end up with multiple corpora that you're comparing and stuff.
yeah. So
Wow, this is cool.
yeah. So I want to do away with some of these words. like Gosier, um, Mama, um, so then I do it again, just following the prompts and how Prof did his. So this is what I've got now.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
your corpus does it have multiple documents or is it just one
It's
big
just one
corpus?
document, just one document.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then of course, I'd like to add some words like asked, um, and so on. Think. So let me do that. I think I've created a space that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, I don't think the space will make a difference, but yeah, it's
Okay.
good.
Okay. Um, which other verb again can I see? Say. Let me see. Don't. Okay. Can I run it again? Yeah. Thank you. So I can stop sharing so that others can demonstrate um, what they have learned as well.
Thanks. Is it going on well for others, or you want to share something too? You want to show us, or you have questions or worries with what has just been demonstrated and what has been taught so far?
I would say, Abel, one thing you might want to do just to keep your life simpler is delete those temporary Spyral notebooks that you created to copy the code from. I find I end up with all these tabs, and it can be useful to delete them after a while. And oh, it looks like Joseph is playing with different tools now.
Wow.
He's playing with the scatter plot view.
Yeah. Joseph, do you want to speak to what you shared, and you want to tell us what challenges or anything, or how far you?
Well, I just noticed that I can edit the whatever the link. Let me share my
Yeah,
screen.
share your screen.
Okay. This is what I did from here. I just copied the link which I got from this place. This is my corpus. So
Oh,
I export this one, the trends. So I copied the link and place it here. But I noticed that we have trends. That's what the tools we are using. So going back to the Voyant to check or to change, going back to the Voyant to corpus tools. So I now notice that we have different tools here. So when I come back to this place, I can change the tool. Instead of using trend, I can place another tool here. Then I run it. It gives me this particular one.
Yeah, you're getting ahead of us here, Joseph. It's no wonder you're a computer scientist. That's what I'm going to be showing. What we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to see how we can bring in any one of the tools we want without having to start in Voyant. And one of the things um, that I could show, excuse me,
that's
one of the things that I can also show you is how there are tool tips which will actually give you some of the names of the different tools. If but I'll show that to you when everybody is finished. Are you all are you all ready for me to move on?
Dr. Reggie, should we move on? Dr. Patience and others. If can other people we have not been hearing their voices, can they tell us whether we should move on if they are going along so that we know everyone is following?
So Sylvia has a question. Can we set as default raw instead of relative frequencies? And yes, one of the things that we're going to learn, we're sort of getting near the end for today, but one of the things we're going to learn tomorrow is how you can not only call any tool you want, but also how you can control the different parameters. So one of the parameters for trends is whether or not you want raw or relative frequency. And so I'll be showing you the grammar, the syntax. This gets more complicated, but the syntax that you can use to call tools and specify the parameters. In some sense, you've already started specifying a parameter by playing with the query parameter. So the query, and then you've got an array of words, you've got a list of words, and we've been editing that list. And then what we're going to start playing with tomorrow is many different parameters. And of course, each tool has their own set of parameters. So I'm going to share right now. And I'm going to start by going back. So I think one of the things that Joseph noticed was right here, we've got my corpus.tool, and then we have the first parameter will be the type of tool. And if I type quotation marks, you'll notice if I pause, we get a tooltip, an in-context tooltip. So Spyral is going to try to suggest what it is that you might want to pull there. And then here we see a list of all the different tools. So I could, for example, decide that I want, there's trends down at the bottom, but I could decide that what I want is phrases. It drops the word phrases in there. It's also, by the way, it's giving me a sort of a little bit of documentation. It tells me that the tool is going to be a string, and then we have an object for the configuration. And that will make more sense tomorrow. The object is these little curly braces here. That's what encapsulates the object, and the object is made up of a series of pairs. The name of the parameter, in this case, query, and then the actual sort of value of the parameter. In this case, it's an array with a set of words, Mr., Miss, and so on like that. So, so now I've got this. The query doesn't really make any sense. So I'm going to, because we're just asking for phrases, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to run it again. And now I should see the panel with the list of high frequency phrases. And this is a panel. This can be sort of interesting. I don't use, ooh, it's not happy with that. This tool will, what I just did was I changed it. So what I wanted was the phrases that occur the most. So at this moment, and what I'm looking at is phrases that are 3 words or longer, but I can sort of see, I can play around with this. Anyway, that's the phrases tool. But the point is that I was able to uh, change the tool using the tooltip. Um, so by putting the put the quotation mark, it then gives me the tooltip, and I can pick it that way. I'm going to show you tomorrow a much more stable way of finding the right things that you want, the right tool that you want. Mr. Mrs. Miss. This should get me back to where I was before. Now, what we're going to do now, the last thing I want to show you is how to save a notebook. I'm going to go back to my slides here. There are two ways of saving your notebooks. One way allows you to save the notebook as an HTML page right on your hard drive so that, even if our server goes down, your notebook is there, you can read it, you can quote it or whatever like that, and you can always later on, you can re-upload it and get it to be interactive. The second way, which I'm going to show tomorrow, is dependent on your having a GitHub account. So your homework for tomorrow is all of you need to get a GitHub account, and this will allow you to save your notebooks on our server. We don't want to get into the authentication game and keeping people's account names and passwords, so we use GitHub to do that. Maybe further down the road, we'll use something else like Google, if that's more convenient for some people. But for the moment, we're using GitHub. And what it will do is it will allow you to save your notebook within Spyral. So you're not saving it external, you're saving it within. But we're going to do that tomorrow. So coming back to here, we are going to use the export tool in Spyral. And that's where we're going to export a downloadable HTML page. I'm then going to open that page up in the browser and show you how you can read your notebook. It's all there. The results will be there, but they're not interactive. It's no longer a viable notebook that you can edit, add cells, remove cells, run things, and something like that. It's just a sort of static, if you will, printout of what was happening. And then what I'm going to show you is how you can reopen that notebook from within Spyral. So you could, if you're switching server or if you, whatever reason, you can go back in and reopen that HTML page, and it will actually become interactive again once you've done that. And then you can run the cells all over again and edit them and so on and so on. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. So here we are. We've got our notebook, my Austin notebook, and we've got this bunch of controls up here. Let me just say something about the controls. The first control is what allows you, once we have the GitHub account, this is where you can save or save as. One of the powerful things you can do in Spyral, which you could do actually in any other notebook environment, is you can fork. If there's a notebook that has all the code you want in some sense already there, you can fork it, create your own version, edit it so that it loads your corpus and not somebody else's, and go on from there. And then you can always create a new Spyral notebook from scratch. We'll be looking at that. In just a second, we'll be showing how to open it. We saw there's this run button. There's a button here that allows you to view and edit the notebook metadata, which we've done already. There's the catalog, which is where you can see publicly available notebooks. So you can find notebooks that other people have written where they have checked that box that says it's publicable. This is where you can view your own account, but you have to have the GitHub account for that to work. At the far end is the help, which we'll be using a lot tomorrow because we're trying to make the help very useful to you. And the one we're going to do right now is the export. So just as we've exported from Voyant, now we're going to export from Spyral. So I click that, and it gives me some choices here. I can export an HTML snippet for embedding this notebook inside another web page. So you can, and this is something you've been able to do in Voyant, where you can export any tool as a code snippet, an iframe that you can paste into another HTML page, and you get the panel working there. And in effect, that's what we're doing here in Spyral is we're creating these with our code, we're creating these little interactive panels. But you can take your whole Spyral notebook and make that a little create a snippet which will embed that notebook in another notebook or in some other web page or something like that. Anyway, that's not something you're likely to use as often. You can have a bibliographic reference. So nowadays, when I write a paper that is based on some analysis, I document my corpus and analysis in a Spyral notebook, and then I will refer to that notebook in the paper that I'm submitting for publication. So people can, if it gets published, people can follow that paper back to the Spyral notebook and can play and sort of compare what I thought I was seeing to what they think is going on. So last and most importantly, I clicked that button for HTML. I'll show that to you again. The moment you click the HTML download button, it downloads it, and you get an HTML page. So I'm going to shut that. And over here, you can see in my downloads folder, I have a file called spiral.html. And if I click on that, it's going to open the notebook inside the browser, but is now no longer, I'm no longer in Spyral. If I go into the upper right-hand corner, there are no buttons. And you'll notice the text font is a little bit different, but it's still readable. You can see the code, but there's no run button to run the code. The panels are still interactive. Are they? No, they aren't. Yes, they are interactive. The panels are interactive. They're sort of embedded in there, but I can't change the code and then rerun it and get a new result. I'm just going to get the panels are going to be there, and I'm going to have the text, and I can see the code. And this can be a useful way to publish your notebooks if you don't want people to fork them or to be able to edit them in some ways. You can publish them and they can still get the interactive panels, but not be able to do anything with them. So I've got this Spyral notebook that I've exported to HTML. So it's a big, complicated HTML page. I'm now going to in Spyral, I'm going to open a new Spyral blank page here. I'm going to go to the Open a Spyral notebook. I'm going to select a file. So I'm going to go to my downloads. And what was it? It was Spyral there it is, Spyral.html. I'm going to click Open, Open File. Now I get this notebook, but now you notice I'm back in Spyral. So now this thing is editable. I can, here is some more text. I can edit the cells. I can run the cells. Oh, here is that problem I described. I tried to run the mycorpus.tool Cyrus, but no corpus had been defined because I had not run the cell before. So I've got to run that cell. And then I can run this cell, and this time I get the word cloud, and so on and so on and so on. So I have an editable notebook. So that's what I wanted to show you. I now turn it over to you and take it away and try saving your notebook and then reopening it. And I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you. We just take some questions based on what has been taught today, and Prof has given us the guide to what we're going to do tomorrow, and you will see the slides as well as the notebook before the night. So we're going to share that. If you have questions, you can raise them now, limited to what has just been taught. And if not, we call it a day. Abel?
I
Yeah,
need to say that, like everybody else, I'm still making my slides for tomorrow. I apologize. I should have had them ready yesterday, but it was the weekend. Abel, I interrupted you.
no, that's fine. Thank you so much, Prof. I was just telling Austin that you're a great teacher, and I could sit under you and learn virtually anything you want to teach, because you've made this so easy to follow, and I'm sure the other participants are better off knowing how to use Spyral and how to interact with the corpora that they have. And I'm sure by the time we round off this aspect of the training tomorrow, this would also be a huge achievement for those of us who are interested in using Voyant tools and Spyral. So it's really, really a pleasure to have you join and teach us. And I'm sure you'll be proud to see the things that will come out of this valuable time you have spent with us going forward. So
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you.
God
Well,
bless you,
thank
sir.
you. That's very, very kind of you to say. And I should say that one of the things that the Augustine and I are trying to do with this hackathon is actually give you the tools so that you can teach Voyant and Spyral. So these slides and the notebooks you're going to be seeing tomorrow. You'll start seeing a lot more notebooks because I'll be showing you how you can copy code from notebooks, tutorial notebooks, and adapt it. And part of the idea, if you think about it, of Spyral is that this is a way you can ask your students to document their learning of Voyant and analysis. One of the things that I and Stefan, when we first started developing Spyral, we wanted to be able to teach our students not to just use a tool, but to think through a tool, to actually make an argument about a text. And to do that, they need to be able to document. I was trying to do this. Here's the results. I was trying to do that. So that's so teaching Voyant and Spyral is very important to me, and I'm hoping those of you who teach, I'm hoping you now have the materials and feel free to use and adapt them to your own teaching. I
Okay.
think Johanna has a question.
Johanna.
Good afternoon or good morning. And I really appreciate how you just ducked out the HTML and make it running somewhere different from the software. For me, you are giving us a tool that we can use it even to build websites to like showcase our work, more especially when we use static website like GitHub, where we can just put our documentation, and also we display it for a while. If we want, if we are done, we can also remove it. I really appreciate what you people are doing. But my question here now is that actually I am thinking, because I'm learning this with a thought of applying it to my own present project, where I am looking at geospatial analysis using Spyral, how I can make the map interactive. For example, it can also show me the display for data visualization, where I can manipulate and say, okay, when I click on a marker on the map, it can also display the visualization of the data per country. This is what is in my mind. And also I want to see how I can use this Spyral to do networking mapping, what called network graph, where I can see that it can connect to different towns different, because I've been to literature, French literature. I want to like use this tool to connect narrative in location, like location narrative from one cities to according to the text. This is what I want to achieve. This is my aim. So how will you help me to achieve this? Because that is what I'm thinking of. Thank you.
So I'm going to show you some tutorial notebooks that we have. So we have the social network. We have a good example of the social network. I don't think we have a good example of, so I've gone to, this is the Spyral notebook for today. And I'm clicking here, it says tutorials. So we have a whole mess of Spyral notebooks that go through different issues. This first set here, creating and saving notebooks, editing notebooks, code cells, getting help, so on, so on, so on. Then we have actual notebooks for tools like I think I was being asked the question about relative and raw frequency, so I'm just going to go into here. So this is one notebook just dedicated to trends. And, I show how to use it, the simplest way to use it. And then here I begin to describe the different parameters. So I want to limit it to nine words. I want to specify the queries. And right here is the parameter to get raw. So with distributions colon raw, and that will enforce getting just the raw, and then so on, so on, so on. I can do other stuff, but we have some more advanced. Um, we have some more advanced ones. So let's see. That was trends, categories. Okay, so. Here is analyzing NER, which is named entity recognition location data using network graphs. And here is something mapping named entities. Now, I need to tell you, I need to warn you that this is where there's a lot more code, because what we're doing in these two notebooks is we're basically doing things that Voyant doesn't do. So we're having to write the code that does this stuff, if you will, from scratch. So here's the NER. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm loading a corpus and I'm getting the entities, and I'm using a particular, so we have three different named entity recognition tools. I'm using Spacey, which is a very common one, and I assign it to entities. And so there's going to be a lot of code here. I apologize. And then for each of these entities, we're creating a table.
Okay.
We're filtering out, so we're getting just the location entities. And here is the table of locations. So we have 8 different novels.
Yes.
And for each location, you can see Italy shows up in the first novel, the first document 3 times, so on, so on, so on. If you go through this, there's probably going to be locations that are incorrect. The East Indies, maybe you don't want it to be Dawlish, might be the name of somebody, or Somerset's. Named entity recognition is not 100%. But anyway, there we go. We have that. So then we're going to create a table, and now's where all the code comes in. Somebody was asking about comics. We tried to put a lot of comments into our code, and then we create this named entity graph, and here it is. So it sort of connects all these things. Now, I would have to run all these cells for this to be interactive, but it is one of those sort of node and rubber band things that you can see what's going on. Of course, what you'd probably want to do is you'd want to delete a number, you'd want to limit this to only those locations that show up more than 5 times or 10 times, because here you've got everything. Putney, Gloucester, so you've got a bunch of less important ones. And so you'd probably edit this in the table, and when you get it so it's satisfactory, you would go down and do this. Okay, so that's one. But I cannot stress that this is where you're crossing a line from what I've shown you today. You don't have to learn JavaScript. You're now, the moment you're into this, you need to get, if you don't know JavaScript, you need to find somebody who's a computer scientist who knows JavaScript. And that's going to be even more so with this one. So again, we're getting entities, we're getting a table of entities, and then we're using HighChart. And here you can see we're using the novel Frankenstein, which are the different locations that mention Frankenstein. So we're using graphing stuff. Now, it may very well be, to be honest, this is a case I was asked at the very beginning before you had all joined, when would we use Spyral and when would we maybe use Python and Jupyter notebooks? And this might be a case if you have a computer scientist or a programmer who's more comfortable in Python and you might want him to do it in Python. But you can do it in Spyral, and that's what we're showing here. So I'm going to stop sharing. This is, in some ways, this is much more advanced than what's going to happen this week. This is where you need to learn JavaScript. And yeah, and this is where you can. This is an example of one of the reasons that we developed with Spyral was because we were getting requests for types of analysis that we didn't want to build a tool for everybody who wanted something different. So we figured Spyral is an environment where people can extend Voyant and begin to write programs that do exactly what they want.
Thank you, Prof. And we call it a day. Today, some people don't worry about some aspect that I just shown. If you're a beginner or intermediate, you will meet up and you understand some of this foundation and be able to do some self-learning on your own with some of the resources that that whole link. So the basics will be taught. And so let's look forward to tomorrow and practice that of today. So on a good note, we're going to call it a day. And I think we say bye to everyone. Bye.
Goodbye. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Yeah. Rockwell,
Bye.
bye.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
But
Bye.
Bye.